LCARA Ham Radio presents a Time Machine Tuesday vintage video release.
Welcome to Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. You can find us at LCARA.net, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. If you're enjoying the videos we're producing here at LCARA, please help our club out by hitting that subscribe button. Also, give us some feedback on our videos. Click the like button, share with anybody who may find it interesting, and be sure to hit the bell icon to make sure you get notified of the next video release. All right, good morning, folks. This is Chris, KY4CKP, and wanted to go over some changes I've made here at the homestead and talk about the antenna setup I've come up with. And it's taken me a pretty good while to work on this and come up with a solution. Where I live, I'm about, as a direct line, I'm about 61 miles from the repeater that my ham radio club uses. I'm a little bit northeast of them, and reaching that with 2 meters is obviously going to be a bit of a struggle, being that 2 meters is generally line of sight. Even though our antenna is up on a pretty good hill or small mountain and on a 100-foot tower, there's some pretty good elevation and stuff between me and that area, as you can see here with the Google Maps image. So I've been thinking and talking to the club elders and trying to come up with a potential solution. Now I have a copper J-pole, and with that I could sometimes hear the repeater. Not very well, pretty scratchy, pretty broken up. But I figured it had to be possible if I was even able to hear it at all, even on occasion, days of good propagation or whatever. So I've been working on a solution, and so the first thing I did, is we'll see in the next segment, is I just put up a temporary mast, kind of using the drive-on antenna mast setup with a couple of extra poles that are about $18, $19 at Lowe's or Home Depot typically. Those aluminum concrete float handle poles, but they work really well and they can nest together, or at least connect together, and a 3-element 2-meter Yagi. And we set that up first, and greatly improved reception. Just having a little bit of a beam. Obviously 3 elements is not tremendous, but that definitely gave me the encouragement to look at that and say, I think that if I went with a little bigger beam, and if I can get some good height, I should be able to reach that repeater pretty well. And so we'll see the more finalized solution I came up with in the later segment. So we'll take a look at the initial testing setup that I did in this next segment, and we'll bring you folks right back. All right, so in this segment, we can see with this first little video clip, I took the drive-on antenna mast concept, and like I said, I just added a couple more poles to it. And the initial testing I did, I think it was with 4 poles and the high gain VB23 FM, 3 element Yagi. And like I say, that was enough height and enough of a beam that I could start talking to the repeater. Again, it was definitely had some noise and scratch to it, but they could copy me and I could copy them. Again, it was very encouraging that that this should be possible to a reasonable degree. So, and it was easy enough to do. I had most of the elements, a couple more poles. I already had the 3-element Yagi I had purchased previous, and so it didn't really cost anything other than some time and effort and burning up some brain cells. Just trying to think about what all I could do to do some testing before I invested a lot of money into the situation. That's one of the great things about amateur radio, is we can test almost anything we can think of, and a lot of times we can do things fairly inexpensively. There's some really nice, well-engineered solutions out there, and as always, those kinds of solutions tend to cost a fair amount of money. But we can do quite a bit with a pretty modest budget. So in this case, I just reused most of the stuff I already had and just bought a couple more of those poles, which are pretty handy to have around anyway. So that was the first test, was using the 3-element Yagi, getting up probably about 25 feet in the air. With that, it's enough to get over the roof there from the backyard. And again, very encouraging test. So that's what we did for the testing phase, and then we moved on to the more permanent phase. So let's take a look at that in this next segment. All right, and so here we can see a picture of the MFJ 1852 6-element Yagi. I've also got the right angle standoff bracket, since I was going to be mounting it to metal masts. The initial testing mast with the aluminum poles, and then with the final push-up mast, which is also galvanized steel. And so we can see that picture there, and the other little thin line you see going through the slide there is a little inverted L 80 meter element that I have. It's kind of sad and pathetic, but it actually works okay for 80 meters and lets me pull in some stations from around, depending on which way I have the tail of the L oriented anyway. So we got this antenna, we got this put up. One of the things is I didn't want to go with too big of an antenna, at least not to get started. I know there's obviously much bigger 2 meter beams, but I didn't want anything too big or too heavy, so I went from the 3 element to the 6 element. The 3 element is mounted at the end. One of the things I like about this 6 element, and it's not a real expensive antenna, is I like that it's sort of center mounted, so it's kind of better balanced when you have it on the bracket and everything. Now the push-up mast I went with for the more permanent installation. I got from Cable and Wireless Shop. There's a number of places you can get these kinds of push-up antennas, and they all have very similar features and construction. This one seems pretty good. Price wasn't too bad. These are the three components that I purchased. The mast itself, which is the TM-50U95, 33.2 or 33 feet 2 inches is what they call it. The ground plate there, which has a nice heavy duty spike that goes into the ground. And then I also got the 30-inch standoff brackets, which you'll see in a moment come off the wall. Now at first I got the 24-inch brackets, and it just wasn't going to be enough to clear the overhang for my roof with the depth of the soffits, and then with the gutters. It wasn't quite enough, so I had to get the 30-inch, and that clears with about a couple of inches to spare. So that worked out pretty well. Now the one thing I'm waiting on, and we'll kind of see this in a picture or a little video snippet coming up, is that I have some limbs I need to take out. I can't go up the full 33 feet quite yet. Now on the original testing mast, the variation of the drive-on, I was getting up at the maximum height that I tested, probably 25, 6 feet. With this one, I should be able to get up a full 33 feet or very close to it. But I need to clear about. There's 3 dead limbs right above this spot, unfortunately, and then one more limb. So once I get some limbs cleared out of the way, I'll be able to get up to a very good height, and should work really well. It was working really well at that 25 or 6 foot level. So I got the standoffs. I drilled some holes into the brick. Used some Tapcon screws to put that in. So here you can see a little bit of a video snippet. It seems like a good, decent, heavy-duty unit. I'm going to put some guy lines on it. Again, this is still just the early secondary testing phase, more or less. But I've got that out there, and I think it's going to be reasonably easy to work with. You can take it up and down. The segments aren't too heavy. Wear a pair of gloves when you're working on this kind of thing. But it's working out really well for me so far, and I think it's going to be a nice semi-permanent, kind of permanent style installation there. So you can barely see it I know it's hard to see in this picture, but there's 3 dead limbs right above where it is. That's why it's not any higher, and then another limb needs to come down right above that. All right, so that's going to wrap this one up, folks. The point of some of these videos is to show the solutions that some of us come up with, which are not always going to be the greatest solution known to man. But we always want to consider the budget we have, the location where we are, some of those kinds of factors, the time and labor involved, different things like that. And if you can find a good club in your area, I know KY4BDP, Brian and I, we talk about clubs a lot, and it can be a challenge sometimes to find a good club. But if you take a look around, again, and of course with the online world, it helps to backfill some of that information. But talk to people, tell them what your challenges are, tell them the problems you're trying to solve, and you can usually find some help. You don't necessarily have to come up with every design or solution on your own. find some help, even find some help with the labor part of things sometimes. So don't be afraid to attempt some of those challenges. This is Chris, KY4CKP, for Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association 73.